Hey everyone, this is Wesley Hitt. I'm a sports photographer, commercial photographer, advertising photographer, stock photographer, people photographer, event photographer, kind of a little bit of everything. My career started, I went to photography school in Massachusetts, a little photography school that doesn't exist anymore. I studied mostly commercial work, but when I got out of school, I came back and got a job as an assistant to a photographer in Little Rock named Bill Parsons. Although we shot mostly people, we're still from a commercial point of view. I'm not a portrait wedding photographer. I've done both of those things in my career, but mostly what I do is work with big businesses. I do a lot of work with Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, AutoZone. Besides that, I also shoot a lot of sports. I got started 22 years ago with the NFL. I was shooting fashion work in Little Rock. Got one of our favorite models. The store I was shooting for was Jerry Jones's daughter, Charlotte, who you've probably seen on TV. And Charlotte and I just became friends. Right about that time, Jerry bought the Cowboys. That shows how old I am. And so I asked Charlotte, I was like, hey, I'd love to come down and shoot a few games. I'd been shooting football for the Associated Press, high school games for people. So Charlotte was like, yeah, sure, let me get you in touch with so-and-so. So the poor guy's name is Rich, and he's still with the Cowboys. And I always felt bad for him because I thought he probably couldn't say no to Charlotte, the new owner's daughter, when she's asking for a credential for a photographer he had never heard of. That first year, I shot 2 games. At the second game, I met a guy who was in charge of what was then NFL Photos. And we talked. He said, send me a portfolio. I'll look at it. They ended up accepting me into NFL Photos. I was the last person accepted in. Several years later, the NFL sold it, and they sold it to Getty Images, the rights to the photos and the distribution. The one thing that's different about me than most people that are doing it nowadays is I own my pictures. If you Google or look me up on Getty's website, I just passed 52,000 photos on Getty's website, and I hope to keep increasing that a lot over time. But I was asked to talk about sports or action photography. And so one of the things that's always a limitation is that I have a tremendous amount of gear. I have an $11,000 lens. You're not going to go buy one. So to show you a whole bunch of photos shot with equipment that you can't or that you don't have doesn't always seem to me to be that helpful. You can look online, you can look at Getty's website and look up a game and look at sports photos. So what I thought I would do is show a screenshot and just talk over some of my photos. And so let's see. I'm trying to get there. There we are. All right. I'm going to start with this photo. I'm sorry, with this copy. This is my website, my email address, my 2 locations on Facebook, and my 2 locations on Instagram. I also have NWA, Helping NWA on Facebook, which is something I started during the pandemic with one of our representatives. And what I found was that all my business went away at the start of this, but there were so many people helping so many people in Northwest Arkansas, and especially feeding. And so if you want to look at it, take a look. But I just started going out, finding people that were doing special things and taking their photographs. So that's what NWA, Helping NWA is about. So feel free to write down all this information. Hopefully you got it. And I'm going to go to the next picture. I wanted to start with this one because as many great photos as I take sometimes, I miss a lot too. So sometimes having that real long, big, expensive lens doesn't quite help. This was one of those cases where I was probably a little too tight. And as he came around, he just happened to jump right out of my frame. So again, I thought, how interesting would it be to show that I walk away and know how many photos I miss just as much as I know how many photos that I got that were good. And so this is one of my prime examples that I had to save. Here's another hazard of sports photography. I was the Razorback photographer for 10 years, so I covered all the sports. Now I shoot a lot of track, which is probably my favorite sport to shoot. This is one of those instances where I set a remote camera down and I put it on a little tripod I had. And then I wanted to get everybody jumping over during the steeplechase. The very first guy, the leader, number one there, as he came over, the very first time they went over it and he jumped, he slipped and kind of face planted, and this wall of water washed over my camera. Here's a frame of that. This was great because I took it to my insurance company and I showed it to them and I'm like, I want to know, am I covered? And they said, yes, you are. But I put this in here because this is also one of the hazards. Now, I laid a towel on top of my camera. The guy next to me did not. My camera did not miss a beat. I quickly ran over after they all ran by and I dried it out. His camera, by the time he left, was not working quite so well. Another important part of this picture, this is a wide angle photo. This is not a long lens or an expensive lens. This is a wide angle lens. So you can see, again, its position, seeing a photograph, you can see the light. This is available light at night, and you can see the light hitting their faces. There's also a backlight that you can see. So it kind of is a great place to get a great action as they splash into the water. Another thing, I'm going to keep going through these. This is, I do a lot of Tennessee Titan games, and this is their introduction when the season's normal. They don't do this now, but they allow certain fans in, and as they come out of the locker room, they go through this process of going down there. And this photo got picked up and used quite a bit, but again, look at the great light on his face. And one thing that I absolutely love when I get it are eyes. If you can get eyes in pictures, the action of the eyes, if that makes sense, the reaction, it always seems to give you a center of focus. When you look at this picture, the first thing you go to are his eyes. And so again, this is a sports photo, but it has nothing to do with the action on the field. This is the other action that happens all around the event that is just as important to photograph and to see. When you don't have a 400mm lens to get the action in the middle of the field, then maybe you get near the end zone and you hope your team scores and you wait for the reaction. Maybe you sit by the bench and you wait for something big and then you catch the players in the bench area reacting to that. Cheerleaders reacting, fans reacting. There's so many other photographs that are there that are around the event that this is, again, an action photo. All right, I'm gonna go. This one I was going through my photos picking out and I decided to put it in. So on Armed Service Day, I was photographing the Patriots. They were at the Titans. And Tom Brady was going around signing autographs for people, the soldiers that were along the side of the field. And as he walked down, shaking hands and signing autographs, this lady soldier just reached out and just gave him a hug. It was the cutest thing I'd ever seen. And Tom was so surprised at it and then reached down and hugged her back. But again, action is about being prepared. My camera's to my eyes so much of the time. I'm waiting for something like this to happen. This may never happen, but if I'm not looking through the camera, waiting for something to happen, I'm never going to get it. You have to be prepared for this kind of opportunity when you're taking photographs. Again, this I think was shot with a 200mm lens, so not a long lens. This is another one. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I like his winning. I like the way he approaches the game. I try to do the same when I shoot. I study the players, who are the stars, who's doing well, what do the teams need to do to win, what do I think they're going to do. But Tom came out before the game without a helmet on and was just walking around and I was photographing him. Yes, this was with a 400, but and I made it a sepia tone, black and white, but I've always just loved the photo and the intensity Again, eyes. Here's one from Bentonville. So I got hired a while back to photograph. This was several years old. Bentonville was playing a team from Texas. And they came up and it had been raining for 2 days. It was terrible. This is Bentonville Stadium. And so the sports information director, I was talking to him before the game, and he was like, sorry, the weather's really bad. And I was like, oh, this is one of those things where this is going to clear out before the game starts. And then there's going to be this beautiful light as the sun sets. And oh, it's going to be beautiful. Well, I hit that right. So as soon as the sky started to light up, I ran up to the other side of the press box or to the stadium and shot several frames of this, some horizontal, some vertical, some with more fans in it. But again, this is a action photo at a sporting event that doesn't have to do with really anything on the field. And so it's anticipating, it's looking for something like this to happen, waiting for it. I can't say enough, how important it is to be prepared and to have your equipment and everything with you. I have a lot of gear. My toughest decision sometimes is what to take. And I photographed a Razorback game several years ago, and I carried my 15 millimeter. It's kind of a fisheye. It bows at the edges, but I don't know if a 15 is considered a fisheye. And at one point we were winning the game, and the quarterback for Arkansas, I was walking behind the bench to the other end of the field, jumped up on the bench and started raising his hands and all that. And I'm right there with a 15. He looks huge. His arms look huge. You see the stadium and the sky in it. And I had a friend that's a newspaper photographer say to him, he goes, who carries a 15 to a football game? That to me was a good reason to carry a 15 millimeter to a football game. That nobody else would think about doing that is a good reason to go do that. So it's fun to walk around with just a 15. It's fun to walk around with just a 50. I'm going to talk about one lens for a minute. Is a 50 millimeter 1.8. If you're using a regular DSLR, it's a $150 lens. It's great for low light. It's kind of 50 is supposed to be your vision, what you see when you're looking straight ahead. So if you're buying another lens, I can't not recommend buying a 51.8. It's the cheapest lens when I've been hiking or climbing or doing something that's a little more risky. You know what? If I bust a $150 lens, I'm okay with that. If I bust an $11,000 lens, not quite okay with that. Neither would my insurance. But again, this is shot without an expensive piece of glass. This is just probably a 24 millimeter. And I took the time during the game to run up the stands and shoot a few pictures. All right. This next one, some of you that you're young and you might not have. This was taken, I was the Razorback photographer when Houston Nutt was the coach. And this is what it used to look like in the end zone as the team ran out. I put this in, it's by far my most famous photo and by far my most ripped off photo. But the week before when we had played at home, I went back to photograph the players running out, and I had a wide angle lens on, but not real wide. And so I'm sitting there watching them go out, and I can see out these windows, which you can't anymore. And I'm looking at it, but I don't have any. I shot 5 or 6 frames, vertical, horizontal, but I couldn't get the whole play like a champion in. I couldn't get the perspective I wanted. But as soon as it was over with and I got all my pictures and I started looking at them, I saw this photo. And so the next game, I took a chair to stand on and I took my 15 again. And so this time I'm standing there. And again, I'm going to talk about this later too, is how important it is to be prepared for the unexpected. I'm standing there, I'm shooting pictures, the team's running out on the field. You can see the guy with his hand on the other player's head, patting him. This is the team going out. This is what their view was. I just was blown away by the view. But then while I'm getting there and it's the team, Darren McFadden steps in front of me, reaches up and snaps his helmet. So I'd seen the visual of this picture, and then I got lucky, and Darren happened to do that. This photo has been used so much by the university. People I've been told, oh, I was on an airplane, somebody had that picture as their screensaver. I even had a man steal it off the internet, get a big print made of it, and then bring it to me and ask me to autograph it. So, you know, it's just a famous old photo. But again, this is just preparation, visualization, and then luck. So I wanted to show this one too. This is introductions at a Titans game. The players come out. Again, it's not a long lens, nothing spectacular, but you're looking for something like this. And the players in the pro level absolutely know this. And so they have their own routines, how they do it when they're introduced. But another important aspect of this photo is look at the background. You're focused on his mouth. You're focused on his huge arms and muscles. You're focused on the expression because there's nothing to distract you. I can't overemphasize how important the background is to the pictures. I'm going to say that 5 more times during this talk. The background is just as important as your subject, and you as a photographer are accountable for everything in the frame. If it's not bringing something to the photo, get rid of it. Shoot tighter, use your feet, step in closer, step further back. The best advice I got at a workshop years ago was the instructor would show photos and then he would show all the little distracting things in the background of the photos. That's how it's important to look at your own work and notice those types of things. Here's another totally different background photo. This is after a Titans win. And this is Luan is his name, and he's hurting out this year. He's the meanest person. He is a brute on the field, and the Tennessee Titan fans absolutely love him. And he loves shaking hands after the game. So he grabbed one of their phones and took a photo. So yes, you see eyes, yes, you see, but look at the background. Look at how important the background is, because the background is also part of the photograph and part of the subject. But again, here's something that is at a sporting event that is an action photograph that has nothing to do with what's going on the field. This is probably shot with a 28, maybe, something around a 50. It might have been a little zoom. So again, how important is it? Here's another wide angle picture of a sporting event. This is the quarterback, Tannehill, coming out before COVID. This is from last year. And they blow the smoke or the cold air out, and the players run through it. And I got fans in it. I got all the reactions. Again, I wanted to show this because if you're at a football game, look around and see what's going on visually, and then figure out how to capture it. I saw this photo. There's a whole bunch of photographers. You can see them on the bottom right and the bottom left. There's a whole bunch straight out to get the shot that I showed you before of the guy flexing his muscles and screaming. All of that happens. There's so many different, I'll shoot from the front one year or one game, then I'll shoot from the side with a wide angle the next game. I've actually shot from behind this as they run out. Every game is an opportunity to shoot something different and to visualize something different. And so that's why I wanted to include this. Again, and I'm going to show another one. This is at Ole Miss. They all rubbed this head of the statue. And so I went up into the stands and shot them as they all got ready to run out. Here's an action photo at a sporting event that has nothing to do with what's going on the field. Again, I can't stress enough to look around. What's the excitement? You can see them all. He's holding them back, waiting to run out onto the field. How important is that? And here's another. You know, after he scored a touchdown, he ran and jumped in the stands. They do that at Green Bay. They've done that a little bit now. You can see a photographer holding the camera up. We were all surrounding him as he was doing that. Again, it tells so much of the story of the game, and it's such nice action, and it has nothing to do with, I think this was shot with a 200 millimeter. I was late getting there, and so other photographers were already a lot closer. But I want to show in another example, another angle, another opportunity to get an action photo at a sporting event that has nothing to do with what's going on the playing field, whatever that sport may be. And here's another one. I put this in because I like it, because again, it's an opportunity. At New Orleans Saints, they have the smoke, but then they project a flag on it and players run out through that smoke onto the field. Well, I can't focus. I have to focus on the smoke because I don't know. So I focused on a couple of guys running out, and I looked down at my camera and I kind of visualized this. So I focused on the next guy, and then I turned my autofocus on. I can't see them before they run out. So what's wonderful about digital is you can delete all your bad ones. So after the player ran out, once I was anticipating the next guy, I just started firing the camera, just the motor drive as fast as it would go, and then outruns this player through that American flag, smoke or whatever. It just kind of became a very graphic, beautiful photo. Again, I looked down at my camera and visualized this because of the bad photo I'd taken right before then. But I saw what I wanted at that point. It's so important to look at your own work. It's so important to be critical of your own work and to know that you're not going to be successful every time, but learn from it. Learn from the bad picture, learn from the mistakes. And then you go, this is my last action photo I'm putting in. So I was shooting for Texas A&M at a meet at Arkansas. And the player from Texas A&M, some of you may have seen this. So the sports information director from Texas A&M is now the track guy at Arkansas. But he had hired me, and so they had actually 4 runners in this race. And so he said, well, I'll take these 2, you take these 2. So the 2 I had were finished last and first to the last. The 2 he had this was one of them. Well, they ended up running, he and his teammate, competing, coming down the stretch of who was going to finish first. This guy, Tucker, was being passed. And as he's leaning forward and they're getting close to the finish line, I had switched off of my 2 guys and switched over to these 2 guys since they were coming at me and they were in the lead. And he started to stumble, and instead of stumbling and falling, he dove. And he dove across the finish line, landed on his chest, won the race, knocked the breath out of him. It was all over TV. I'm being employed by A&M, so they have the right to the photo. I do also, but it's their photo. And so I woke up the next morning. I had an email from a guy in Scotland who wanted a print of this photo to put up in his gym. I had an email from a paper in Paris, France that wanted to run it on the front page of their sports section. I had to call the A&M guy and say, hey, I'm getting all these calls, I'm going to direct them all to you. And he was like, okay, well, I've already been called from Australia. I've been called from Brazil. People want to do interviews. So again, this is about, nobody could have anticipated this happening. And I got it. I was the only one that got it. And it was on TV. It was a Sports Center. It was an incredible moment. Nobody, all the track guys shooting around me, we were all like, nobody had ever seen someone dive over the finish line like that. So that was cool. Again, when it comes to action, it's be prepared. This was probably a 200 millimeter lens, maybe a 300 at the most. But this is preparation, figuring it out on the fly. And then again, it's like the McFadden stepping in front and snapping his helmet. It's luck. It's being prepared. You make your own luck. I don't know how better to say that in sports photography. There's so much luck involved, but you make your own luck at the same time. So one of the things that I had talked about besides action when Trent called me was that I've done a couple of talks with students. And one of the things I had been asked was like, how do I be a professional and how do they were asking me, work with subjects. And so I felt like, that's very valid. When I was younger learning, I cared about my camera settings and what film to use and all this other stuff. And so much of that is done for you nowadays. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you learn how your camera works so that you can take it off of auto. I don't use automatic program ever. I can't remember ever. Now, every once in a while, I'll set it on aperture priority and use it, and given real tough lighting situations where I don't have a chance to do it manually, but I always want to pick my shutter speed if possible. So that's just kind of an important aspect to think about when you're buying stuff, when you're looking at stuff. So here's something I just was thinking about. How do I work? It's about, photography is about light, 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 light. With no light, you have no photography. So you have to get used to, I walk into a room and I look at the light in the room. If I'm there to photograph you, I'm looking around. I'm watching you, I'm watching your gestures, I'm watching how you stand, maybe how you sit, how you talk. I'm looking what would make an interesting background. What might be important to you that I can throw out of focus behind you that is a subtle thing about you, but not distracting. So, I put down 5 things that I was thinking about that I thought was very important, is that number 1, it's not about you. I can't tell you enough how many people are, especially photographers, that love to talk about the fact that they're a photographer. Ooh, look at me, I'm a photographer. Everybody's a photographer nowadays. And I could sit here and complain about that, except that I've been doing this for 40 years and it's been that way the whole 40 years that I've been shooting pictures. Everybody was a videographer for a while. Now everybody's both. So when I'm with my subject, I dress very plain, black shirt, jeans. I try not to talk much unless they're not talkative. And then I might try to get them to talk about themselves a little bit. Or years ago, I photographed Sam Walton, and I did some research, and I was playing tennis tournaments at the time, and he was a big tennis player. So when he came in, that was the subject that I brought up to him, was his tennis game. And so we had something we could share while I was posing him and setting him and all that. Make your subject feel like that they, are the most important thing to you is to make them look good. So I may have worded that terribly. I want my subject to know that I'm there and my job is to make them look great. I fix ties on men, I brush off a little dandruff, I pull down on the suit, I don't touch the women that way, but I'll make them fix their, if there's another woman, I might get her to fix something, their jewelry. I want to put my camera, my lights, and everything down, and I want to walk right up to the person I'm photographing, look them in the eye, and make them feel good. I want to make them know, without saying it, that the most important thing I have to do at that moment is to make them look good. That's all that I care about. My third one is get the subjects involved. So I want them to, the worst thing in the world is to get a job to go photograph somebody, and then you show up, and let's say it's for a business publication. And so you show up to do the photograph, and when you show up, they're completely, oh, I forgot all about it. Sorry. Okay, I'm here to do a photograph of you that is going to be seen by your peers, people in your business, and your friends, yet you don't care. So I know places, publications that hire photographers for $50. I would love to write an editorial sometime to say, you know what, if a publication is sending someone to photograph me, I want to know who that is, and I would like to know how much you're paying them. Because are you hiring the cheapest person you can find to photograph me? That's kind of insulting. I would rather pay for it myself and hire my own photographer, which I get hired a lot by people to feel the head of JB Hunt. So JB Hunt hires me, I come in, we do 3 different setups. I come the day before, we find 3 different scenarios. His wife picks out his clothes. He comes to work. He'll be in the office that day with all these different outfits. He's at his desk. I come in, I set up a whole scene. They might have a little area in their offices that looks kind of like a living room. So we'll do him without a jacket on, just a shirt, casual shorts. I might have him sitting on the arm or on a sofa, just some casual looks. Bam, 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 bam. I'm shooting, moving as quick as I can, getting as much as I can. 15, 20 minutes of his time. Then he goes back to work and changes clothes to another outfit. We take all my lights, take them down, move to another location, set it all up. Now this one is for the executives. This is for the annual report. So now he has a very nice suit and tie on. And so I'll do things maybe in an empty office, or we try not to use his office unless he can move to another one to work in, which happens. But I'll do the business, sitting on the desk, behind the desk, things that look very corporate, very investorish. And then we'll probably take the tie off and do something a little more casual out front, in the lobby, something with a big logo or something like that. So when publications call, he's too busy to have his photograph done, but they'll be glad to send him some. And the people can pick which one they want. So they're very invested in the photographs. I can't tell you what a difference that makes. So again, number 4, right below, get your subjects involved, arrive early and be prepared. I get there, I look around the room, I find my background, I find my lighting that I want to use. I do all of that. And I do that ahead of time so that I respect his time or her time. I have just as many women I photograph as men. I want them to know that I want to make them look good. That's my whole investment, and I don't want to waste their time. Because if they were to leave their office and go to a studio and spend 3 hours of their day getting a headshot done, that executive's time is worth more than it cost them to bring me in to do it there, and it'll take 15 to 30 minutes of his time, and he never has to leave his office. So that's how important. And the other thing is, like everybody else, I hate to have my photograph taken. So you'll hear that over and over, oh, I hate to have my photograph taken. I tell people, oh, that's my life. I hear that all day long. Hopefully it won't be that bad. So I try to make it a little fun. I try not to be too serious. Number 5, did your subject enjoy the experience? Because everyone hates to have their photo taken. So if they can go home that day and almost maybe even not think about it, or think about what a great experience it was, I've won. What's important to me is to not have them go home and say, God, it was terrible. I hate to have my picture taken today. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, I hate to have my picture taken, but it wasn't a bad experience. So that's my goals. Those are 5 things. So now I want to show you, we'll go through a few photos. This is actually a very old photo, but I was told to talk about action. This is a portrait with action. See how important knowing how both of what I do goes together. Lighting, action in the photograph. Again, action in the photograph. Look at the expression, look at the light, look at all of it. We had such a fun, and it's a wide angle lens. Here's another. This man started Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. So we were doing some pictures. I'm a lighting fool. I love lights. I love artificial light. I love natural light. I'll mix them. I'll do whatever to achieve what I visually see. So as you can see from this photo, I have a backlight on the right, a backlight on the left. You'll see the highlights running down the side of his head. They're both kind of low. They're not above him. He's bald, and I don't want to highlight the top of his head. You can see how the rim light on his stomach and under his chest and stuff. And then I put a couple of cards in front of those lights, and they're bouncing off the background to lighten it up a little bit. But just a nice picture. My main light is right up. You can see the shadow under his nose. That's how you can tell where the main light is. And it's one light just above me looking down on him. Here's a picture. This is with a 50 1.8 at 1.8. So there's no depth of field hardly. I'm sitting, it's all windows behind me. You can see the reflections in her eyes. And for a woman, it's just very soft. The colors are nice. It's just got such a very nice off. But we were doing pictures and I had lights set up, and she sat down and started talking, and I was like, don't move, let me get it. Here's another, outside, natural light, cloudy day, simple. Look at the background, simple. You focus on that wonderful beard and that wonderful smile and those wonderful eyes. Always liked this photo because it was all about him, and the colors all just kind of are soft and blend together. Yeah, this is the president of Mercy Hospital, I believe, and I had to do several hospital people. Here again, you can see I have a little light back to the highlighting on the side. I put the logo out of focus so that you'll know who it is. His tie matches the wall. Everything is real subtle. He stands out, and for a photo of the executive of the hospital, they can put a title at the top and over the logo, a little bit, and boom, there you go. Nice smile. This lady I photographed recently, and she's the head of the Arkansas Community Foundation, and I shoot a lot of stuff for them, their annual report. And so they had a hard time getting this to show. And so she was very comfortable. What was funny was the art director for this actually bought this dress for her and brought it because she loved the green with the walls and the gold, and her hair is red, kind of gold, so how all those colors blend together. I could go into a long story about how I lit this, but again, look at the shadow under her nose. So I have one light up here, and I've actually lit the wall to get the reflections in the lettering, and that's it. That was my lighting, period. So this I photographed for an Argentinian magazine. He's from Argentina, and he was the international lawyer for Walmart. And they said, please don't photograph him against anything blue. And if you've been to Walmart headquarters, almost everything's blue or boring. They had this wall in the lobby. So literally some of the people at Walmart helped me. We moved all the plants and the furniture out of the way. And so I brought him in. You can see again, I don't have a lot of lighting options. I'm in a real small area. So I have one light right above me. You can see the little bit underneath, and that's all that I used. But then I worked on his posing. I wanted him to be authoritative, boss, but lawyers have such a bad reputation. I didn't want him to be stern. I wanted him to have a smile, and I wanted it to show international. Boom, the wall worked perfect. But when you're shooting for someone, they don't want one picture. They want options. So I shot horizontal, vertical, different things with it. And then I already had another setup out there. And so this was, of course, it's the blue, and you can see the blue is tough with skin. But look at the different lighting. This one, I wanted it to be a little more serious, but also show the international with all the flags. I lit him, you can see the triangle under his eye. That's called Rembrandt lighting. And if you look at Rembrandt portraits from the 15th century or 1500s or whatever, that's why it's called, he actually used window light, and he would have that V. That's called Rembrandt lighting because of that. The little shadow under the nose is called butterfly lighting because your nose, it has the shape of a butterfly. But again, I'm trying to give him two different options. I did him smiling in this one too, and not so serious, but it gives him room at the top above his head for the mask of the magazine. It gives him room down the sides to put words or whatever. All of that is very important when you're shooting an assignment for a magazine. Although it may not be for the cover of the magazine, it pays a lot more if you get the cover. So you always try to shoot to maybe possibly get the cover. Hopefully they'll like your picture so much that they'll use it on the cover, although it wasn't intended. Here's another photo. This young guy has a Fossil Cove brewery. And so we were photographing him like the guy with Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue at his business, and that's his dog. We did a whole series with him and the dog, and we made the dog famous. This has got 3 or 4 lights strung around. You can see the reflections in the machines. You can see a little light on the side of his face right here. That's coming from a light between the two off to the side. And then he's got a little bit, I've got a main light on this side hitting him. And you can see a little bit of a Rembrandt lighting on that side of him. And everything else we staged. I used to do a lot of medical stuff. This is a brain surgeon. He is one of the leading brain surgeons in America. And he comes from Syria. And so you can see, you don't want to look on the monitors, but that's what he does. Those are gross things. But they actually in this room had containers stacked around that were labeled human brain. So they actually practice. He was teaching, this is his teaching room, and they work on cadaver heads. And so they had labels of brains and labels with human heads in it. Bodies are donated, and that's where they practice from. This lady has written several books. She's at the University of Arkansas. And so I did a whole bunch of pictures of her. And then she had this beautiful window sitting there. And so I said, just sit in the window right there. Let's talk and let me click a few photos. That's where the lighting comes from that. This is a story. I was shooting a travel piece, and this is a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And again, action. Look at the action going on. You kind of get a feel. You're younger, so you don't know who Dave Brubeck is. Dave Brubeck, but the album there, the old stereo there, the LPs, all of that just kind of was a throwback. Although this is not an old photograph. But again, I liked a little bit of action to it. Here's a couple for actually an annual report. They've donated, and so we wanted to do it. They live on the lake. I lit them with strobes outside, and I have to balance the strobes with the daylight. And so that gives you a little bit of a different feel. Love spending time with people. So I do a lot of work for Theater Square, and I said I was a lighting buff. They give me free reign. We can't ever do, they don't light it because the stage and the lighting isn't set by the time we have to do the publicity photos for an upcoming play. So this is all my lighting, and it's one of those when you get it back, it's like, oh, that worked way better than I expected. The guy on the right is the main character. The other guy is the contender. So I wanted to focus on the guy on the right. And so he has more light on his face. You can see I have two lights back behind him, hitting their face, another light from this side, and then just some fill with cards and stuff so the shadows don't go dark. Here's another thing, action. I shoot some stuff for Tyson, and these are people that buy Tyson products. And so they agreed. We came in and photographed them working to use them on an ad. Here's a JB Hunt. We were in Dallas shooting. We were on one of their yards, and it was super early in the morning before the sun came up. I was working with the video crew. They were setting up. So I took off and walked around and just started shooting pictures. This trucker was in his truck getting it ready. I thought, a perfect morning trucking photo. Here's another photo from Theater Square. Again, this was two different shots that they put together for the ad, but look at the lighting on both of them. How important it is to work with, if you ever get a chance to work with actors and actresses, they're the best. All you need to do is walk up to them, tell them what you're looking for in a photo and what kind of expression, and then get out of their way. They will do the rest, and you stand there and just click away. My job is to get the lighting right, to get the set right, and then let them do what they do, and that's act. Most people aren't comfortable doing that. Here's another photo. I was shooting for a magazine, and we were shooting about at birds you can fly your plane in and camp. And so that's what this photo was for. It's actually my shirt. They brought clothes, but the shirt was perfect for it, a little bit of color. This young man has passed away since I took this photograph, and which is very sad. He was so easy to work with, and he's a perfect model for something like this. But it was to illustrate flying in and camping at Bird's Adventure Center on the Mulberry River. And so for my last photo, I put this in. This is a friend of mine. She's beautiful. She is studying Buddhism in Vancouver, Canada. She's from Little Rock, Arkansas. She went to school at the University of Arkansas. And she has this very free spirit. So I talked her into going to Petit Jean Mountain with me and hiking down to the waterfall behind the lodge on a summer day. And then we just played. We just did photos, and she didn't care about getting wet. So I'm like, all right, and so I had a towel over my camera and I shot pictures. I put this in because I wanted to end with, photography is a blast. It's a door to things. It's about having fun. It's about doing fun photos and things that you enjoy, what your interest is. I've always been athletic and enjoyed sports. Sports has never made up 50% of my income. I've just managed to make it profitable. But it's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy the athletes. The thing I miss the most about the Razorbacks or the young athletes getting with McFadden. I got to see him through 4 years of college and then see him on Sundays in the pro on a, you know, if I could shoot a game that he was in. Those are things that just make what I do special. Like I say, I was an assistant for 2 years. I've been in business for 38 years as self-employed. I've never really had a job. Photography is a lot different. I get asked a lot nowadays advice, and I really don't have any. It's changed so much. I think everybody's trying to survive and ink it out. I will say a couple of things. One is professionals like to work with professionals. Big corporations like to hire me because I do business right. I have a sales tax number, I have insurance, I have liability insurance, I have everything. I do business the right way, and they know that, and that's important to them. And so I think if you conduct yourself as a professional, it will show, and that's your start into getting more. So you have my email address. Feel free to friend me on Facebook. Feel free to email me with questions that you have. I love helping people. I can't tell you enough how many people have helped me in the past. Being at football games and sitting in the media room talking to Sports Illustrated photographers was some of the best advice that I ever got. But I tell people at the same time, in the media room, I can have great conversations. I can talk to a photographer from Sports Illustrated for an hour in the media room. On the field, we can be sitting right next to each other in the back of the end zone. We don't even acknowledge each other's existence. I'm focused on what I'm doing. He's focused on what he's doing. So we go from there. Hopefully some of this has been helpful. Feel free, if you see a photo or something more that you would like to know, ask. But don't be afraid to put your camera down and get in touch with the person that you're photographing. Get to know them, get them to feel comfortable, and then just enjoy yourself and have a good experience. That's what everybody's looking for in photography. So thank y'all.